welcome to Edison TV. I'm Michelle Livings, and today I'm very pleased to welcome James Garner, CEO of Kazia Therapeutics. James, hello. You're here to talk about a very special molecule.
Indeed. Thanks very much for having me, Michelle. It's great to be here, and it's great to talk a little bit about some of the exciting things that have been happening in Kazia over recent months.
Absolutely. So can you walk us through then the EVT 801 molecule? Why is it special? And what's the whole rationale behind acquiring it?
Well, 5 years ago, we brought in a drug called paxalisib to Kazia, and it's really kept us busy all this time. For the last 4 or 5 years, we've been focused almost single-mindedly on that one drug. But we never really planned for the company to become a single drug company. We always thought we'd build a portfolio of really exciting drugs. We wanted to wait for a couple of things. We wanted to wait until we felt we'd earned our stripes with paxalisib. We wanted to feel that we'd really demonstrated the business model we've been talking about, the licensing and great quality drugs, building their value, partnering them out. We wanted to show that we actually really did have the drive and the skills and the resources and the networks to do that. And second, we wanted to find a drug that was as exciting as paxalisib. The second drug had to be at least as good as the first. And EVT-801 is really the first thing we've seen that kind of cleared that bar.
Right. So that begs the question then, how does EVT-801 compare with other antiangiogenic compounds?
Well, this is a big category of cancer drugs. Of course, there's about $12 billion a year of sales in antiangiogenic cancer drugs which work by cutting off the blood supply to the tumor. It's a very, very well-proven space. And of course, the huge drug in this category is a drug called Avastin, which has been around for about 15 years or so, and it still sells about $7 billion a year. But the difficulty with these drugs is a couple of things. First of all, Avastin's an injectable drug. It's not very convenient for patients. We really like to try and give patients a tablet they can take at home rather than having to come in for intravenous infusions and things. But also, a lot of the oral drugs we have in this space are quite toxic. They're really quite dangerous. Now, EVT-801 is a very, very precise drug. It just targets one very, very specific thing. And that translates into hopefully a much, much better safety profile for the drug. This should be much more tolerable for patients. And that has two consequences. That means that patients can take higher doses. And of course, in cancer drugs, potency and safety are really just two sides of the same coin. The safer the drug is, the more we can give to the patient. But it also means that we can combine it much better with other drugs. And that's going to be a big part of how we develop the drug, is really thinking, how do we combine it with other drugs to get the maximum benefit for patients?
So obviously there need to be the clinical trials going forward. Could you describe the plans for the phase 1 clinical trials for us?
Yes, this is really very advanced now. It's going to be starting quite soon. We've said that we're going to start the phase 1 by the end of calendar 2021. We're well on track to do that. Now, there's a certain amount of work in these so-called first-in-human studies that just has to be done every time. We're looking at the safety of the drug, its tolerability. We're looking at how long it stays in the body, something we call pharmacokinetics. And we're looking to understand the right dose for future studies. So that's really the price of entry. That's the bread and butter of any first-in-human study. And of course, we'll be doing all those things in our study. But the point where it really gets quite cool is we're going to be adding on to this some very, very sophisticated what we call biomarker work. It's really looking at using very, very modern techniques to understand exactly how the drug is behaving in the body, what it's doing, measuring its effects. We'll be looking at how it switches on and off certain genes, how it changes the behavior of the immune system. We'll even be using artificial intelligence techniques to analyze the CT scans we take in the study and get lots of information about things like the texture of the tumor, its volume, its density. We're going to have an incredible wealth of information coming out of this study. It's really one of the most scientifically rich and sophisticated studies I've been involved in, and we're really excited to see how all that comes together.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. That is quite fantastic. So, what does the relationship then look like between Kazia and Evotech as it pertains to EVT 801?
Well, we brought this drug in from Evotech. They've done all the preclinical development, all the laboratory work, and they've done it magnificently well. And so we licensed the drug in for them. We paid 1 million euros in the upfront. We've paid up to 308 million euros in milestone payments. Sounds like a big number. A lot of those are commercial milestones. We won't be paying them anytime soon. And then we do have single-digit royalties on sales. So we've got in that sense, a very standard licensing agreement with Evotech. However, as we were sort of going through this licensing discussion, it really dawned on us, Evotech weren't licensing the drug to us because they didn't believe in it. I mean, on the contrary, I've rarely seen a team of scientists so passionate about a drug candidate as the Evotech team were about 801. But they were licensing it to us because just isn't what they do. They don't develop their own drugs. Evotech works as a partner to other companies to help them develop their drugs. And they're really, really good at it. They're one of the best companies in the business at this kind of work. So as we were going through our licensing discussions, it sort of dawned on us, why don't we not just become their licensee, but also their client? Why don't we use Evotech to help support us through the development of this drug? And that's exactly what we're doing. And to my knowledge, it's almost a unique partnership in the industry, this sort of dual relationship between licensee and licensor and client and service provider. And it really gives a very nice integration between the two companies. We've already managed to get right to the cusp of a clinical trial in just 6 months since doing the deal. And I think it's been one of the really interesting things about this business relationship. And certainly the Evotech team have just been incredible to work with. Their reputation is well deserved.
So, assuming then, if they were involved in the preclinical trials, will they be involved in the actual clinical trials that we were talking about as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We're working really closely with them on that front. And it's great because it brings that continuity, that familiarity with the drug. There's nobody who knows the drug better than the scientists in the Evotech team. Yeah. And they also have an incredible set of resources and capabilities in their organization for everything from manufacturing to the very, very sophisticated lab tests that we're doing on as part of the study. So it's just been a terrific, somewhat serendipitous, but a really terrific relationship that's come out of it.
So then, as a result of this, could we expect collaboration beyond 801?
For sure, we'd love to work with the Evotech team more broadly. We've got paxalisib, of course, in our pipeline as well, our brain cancer drug. Now, that's a much later stage asset. So there's a little bit less need for some of the kind of more lab science that the Evotech team is so good at. But certainly, as Kazia moves forward, as our pipeline grows, as our work advances, we know who to call for this work, and so I think I certainly expect this will be a long-term relationship, and very probably one that goes broader than just 801.
Great. So, what updates and timelines can investors expect over, say, the next year?
Well, it's going to be a really important year ahead for us, and as I say this about every year we go through in Kazia, but every year it sort of ends up being pretty wild. But I think next year is a very decisive one. We're going to be obviously having some operational updates along the way with our GBM Agile pivotal study of our lead program, paxalisib. That drug is in phase 3, and it's going to be moving through quite rapidly. And so we'll be sharing regular progress updates with investors about how that's going. More operational in nature, but still very important. We've got 8 other clinical trials going on with that drug. And of course, where you got that many trials, you've got a lot of data. We'll be sharing that with investors as it comes through. And that'll be potentially opening up new uses of our lead drug in other forms of cancer. Then, of course, there's the EVT-801 phase 1 study. That'll be starting up by the end of this year. And it's a very open label study, so we get the chance to really see how that's going almost in real time. And so we'll be working out how to keep investors informed with that study. And then finally, and perhaps most crucially, we're potentially within 2 years or so of a marketed product with paxalisib, our lead program. And so I think one of the things investors really are expecting to start hearing from us, and they will be starting to hear from us, is how we plan to commercialize that drug. We'll be starting to talk more and more about the commercial plans, about the path to market, because I think that's really the stage of the game we're at now.
Yeah. Well, just finally, you mentioned pipelines just a moment ago. Are you looking to expand your pipeline, or is two pipeline assets enough?
It's funny. I was speaking to a fund manager just a couple of weeks ago, and we went through the whole story. And at the end, he sort of said, "Gosh, James, Kazia has got two really good quality assets." And he said, "That's two more than most of the companies we see." And there's no doubt we've got two great drugs in our pipeline, and we need to make sure that we don't take our eye off the ball and spread ourselves too thin.
Hmm.
However, I think our aspiration for Kazia always has been to have multiple things going on in the pipeline, different stages. And so, it's taken us a few years to bring in our second asset. I hope it won't be quite so long before we bring in our third. But this is very much how we've sort of always thought about building the business, is to look for these really, really good quality drugs, which just need a good new home. And we've done it twice already, and I very much hope that before too long we can do it a third time.
Well, we hope so too. It's been fascinating talking to you today. Thank you so much for your time.
Michelle, it's a pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.